Oops. Today's job, we're messing around with E34 axles. So the E30 and E36 compact axles, once you put a lot of power down them, don't work. Well, they do, right up until they don't. So I've got 2 sets of boots. These ones are the same either end, so you just need the same set 4 times. I've got the Gresham Performance axle adapters. So the spline goes into the E36 compact hub, and then they bolt to the axle. So you're going to need an extra set of bolts because normally this just slides in, and we'll probably use the same retainers on both sides. And then you've got E34 axles in an E30, and because we're going with the S50, we're going to need a little bit more support in this section. The teardown should be fairly similar for a bunch of other axles, so this should cross-reference with other things. We're going to strip it apart. The middles are going to go get powder coated and the ends are going to get electroplated, and then we can put them back together and we can have axles. Wear gloves, you will get greasy. We've got a replacement for that in the kit. Oops. Because we're going to get that re-electroplated, we're going to remove that off there as well, but we'll take the rest of it apart first. That can just go on the bin, and you can see it was just starting to split on the inside. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. I'm just going to bin that. I'm also going to just do a little scribe. For this next one, I'm going to knock the cap off and then scribe the mark on the end, so then the spline orientation is exactly the same for each end. Normally I'd center pop, but because these are such a balanced item, you don't really want to create abnormal weight, so probably could still, but let's not, just in case. So I can clean this off and then powder coat the ends and then rebuild it. On the profile, you can see the larger one is going to the side with the larger flat, just so you can remember orientation. That's all of them apart. Now, you can disassemble these, remove the ball bearings and whatnot, but you really don't need to. You can give it all a good clean, keep all of the orientations the same, and we've marked out where the spline's going to go on 3 of these. Forgot about one of them. But at least we know they're all going to end up on the same end of the axles, and if you don't need to take them apart, you don't need to take them apart. You can keep them in their orientation, put them in degreaser, move them around, clean them up, and then pack more grease in there. You do want to get the old grease out. But I'm not going to do that until I'm ready to completely assemble. I don't want them to rust, so they're good just sitting like this, as is. I'll wrap them up, put them aside, get everything nice and fresh, and then freshen these up at the same time. We got replacement rings, we got replacement boots, and we've got replacement circlips. So all of this is just going to go in the bin. That's all the parts clean, kind of ready to go. I'm going to send these to electroplating. I'll clean these up, get them re-powder coated. All right, I've built one, so I know what I'm doing. Looks good. 100% wear gloves. Your hands are going to get greasy. So I cleaned out all of the bearings, so they're all nice and clean. We can re-grease them. We've got our grease. The kit that I bought came with retaining rings and they are real tight. So I'm not using those. I have stainless steel zip ties and a stainless steel zip tie gun. So if you do get that same kit, I'll leave a link in the description. Expect them to be tight and kind of difficult to get on. I found with the rubber boots, if you put them in a little bit of boiling water just to loosen up the rubber, they're easier to get on. So I'm gonna get some things set up and then we'll just rebuild this second shaft. So first step is heat up the smaller end of the boot. I've already cut up just a corner of one of these, put a tiny amount on a piece of cardboard so then I can lubricate the boot to get it onto each part. Dry it off so there's no water on the inside. You don't want water on the inside. Looks good. It might flip over, but then you can push it back, get it down. We're going to do the other side as well. If you're using a clamp that you can undo easily, it's fine to put the clamp on there now, but if you're using a zip tie, don't put that on yet. You want to make sure that it's all built together because you may need to twist this around. It'll make sense in a second. While we're waiting for that to heat up, we can put the other one on. So put one side in, coming in from the inside. Make sure it's seated. Yep, sweet. Much easier. Cool. So I'm going to put all of these on later. I'm not going to do them just yet. If you are using a worm drive, it might pay to just put them on the shaft so then you can move them up, but I'm not going to use those. We now need to pack the bearings. Now, I've put a mark on one of them and that side, so I know that that part of the spline goes back in the exact same spot. This is the part you want to make sure you've got gloves on. Just move your grease around. It can separate a little bit. Then we want to make sure we're putting it on the right end. I didn't mark this end. Learn from my mistake. Mark your ends. Get your circlip. Your hands are going to be greasy. Circlip's on. Pull the cover back a little bit. Get some grease in. Just wiping this back face a little bit. This is the point where you don't want to have both your zip ties tight around there. You need to make sure that these holes are all lined up, and if you need to twist this to get it sitting right, you want to be able to still do that. So we're just gonna... It's all lined up. It's tapped down. It's not completely seated yet, but we're going to use the vise when we've got the other cap on. Load up some more grease. Get one of your caps. Again, line up the holes properly. got a rag in the vise. We're going to grab the end. All right, it's nice and seated. I'll clean out the holes. Now put on the zip ties. That's one end done. This next one, I'm going to put the zip tie on the top straight away because it slipped off before and we only need to be able to rotate it on one side. Got my lines marked up. I'm going to vise it now. So I had it all together. And you may have noticed I was cutting the ends of these zip ties. I went to put the tool back, had a chat with the mechanic and told him the problem. And he said, why don't you just make it so it cuts off easier? So these things have a little gauge on them on how much tension it needs before it cuts it off. Set this, and then you don't have to mess around with it. I'm going to swap all of my zip ties over just because it cuts it off a little bit neater. Yeah, much nicer. I should also mention I've been trying to get these opposite side. It's a balanced shaft. If you put them over on the same side, it might put it out of balance. I don't know. Just something I was thinking about. Another thing sorted, which is sick. Really happy with how these came up. Once I worked out how to use the stainless steel zip tie tool, even better. I didn't grab the right bolts for these, so I need to get the hardware to then bolt all of this together. And from my understanding, Matt Gresham from Gresham Performance said you're supposed to use the E34 520i or 52i axles. Now, looking on Real OEM and the BMW parts sites, they're the same part number as the V8 automatic. So if you're gonna do this swap, try and go for the 520 or 525i. If in a pinch, have a look at them in a V8 automatic. They are definitely different in a manual. Because I've used the V8 ones, I think this center cap is just a little bit different diameter. And I have just put a little bit more of a lead in on these stub axles to make it so they fit a little nicer. If you're new to the channel, this is what it's going in. This is my E30 M3 Ute. I've got an S50 in there. I've got a bunch of other M parts in there, including F82 M4 seats, E46 steering wheel. So if this is the first video of mine you watched, maybe check out the rest of the series. It's been going for a little while and there are quite a few episodes for you to catch up on. I want to say a big thanks to all of my Patreons. Thanks for all sticking around. The merch store is up where I have the Crab Car t-shirts, jumpers and hoodies. You can also grab one of the normal ones that I wear, flags, car air fresheners. Hopefully in the next episode, I'll have all of the bits that I need to rebuild my LSD, and I've got some rear bumper parts coming. Once all of the bumper parts come in, we can start getting back on with the body. Have a good one. Keep lifting rocks, keep finding crabs. Cheers.